Parshas Vayera. This week's Parsha begins with a description of a visit by three apparently men, actually angels, who came to visit Avraham Avinu, Abraham. And they have three different missions. One of them is to heal Avraham. The other is to tell him that he will have a child, Yitzchak. And the third is to destroy Sodom, which had become corrupt to the core. Now, this was a problem for Avraham, not the first two, but this business about destroying Sodom gave Avraham Avinu a pause. And the verses I'd like to focus on are in Perek Yud Ches, Psukim Chav Beis and Chav Gimel. That's 18, 22, and 23. So this picks up 22. Chav Beis starts when the angels are already on their way to Sodom. And the verse says, Vayifnu misham ha'anoshim, the men, meaning the angels, turned away from where Avraham was, Vayalchu Sodoma, and they went towards Sodom. V'Avraham odenu omed livnei Hashem, and Avraham is still standing before God, meaning he's still engaged, presumably, in some type of prophetic experience. The next verse, that's Chav Gimel 23, says, Vayigash Avraham, and Avram approached. Vayomar, and he said, Ha'af tispet tzadik im rasha, will you also destroy the righteous with the wicked? He apparently is arguing with the Almighty and God's declared plan to destroy Sodom because the cry of the city had reached God's ears. And then he begins on what is the famous negotiations. Ulai yesh 50 tzadikim b'soch ha'ir. Maybe there are 50 righteous people. Ha'af tispeh v'lo tisol ha'makom l'man ha'chamishin tzadikim asher b'kabah. Will you also wipe them out? And you won't give any relief as in acknowledgement of the presence of 50 righteous people. And he argues further. He says, Cholila l'cha me'asos kadavar hazeh lahamis tzadikim rasha v'hayot katzadik rasha. Cholila, we generally translate colloquially as God forbid. The commentaries here say it would be profaning your name. Cholila l'cha. It would be from the language of chol or chulin, chilul Hashem. It would be a desecration of your name. In other words, if people say, hey, look, God really doesn't distinguish between the righteous and the evil, and it's one fate that befalls them all, there's no point in being righteous, and they'll check out, morally speaking. The verse continues, again, it's forbidden to you, the judge of the entire world won't do justice, won't perform justice. So Hashem negotiates, and he says, if there are 50, I won't destroy the city. And Avraham says, in the next verse, this is in Chav Zayin, Vaya'an Avraham, and Avraham responds. And he says, Vayomar, Hineino ha'alti l'deber. I've had, let's just say, colloquially, I've had the chutzpah to speak El Hashem, Vanochi Ofar ve'efer, and I am dust and ashes. We'll talk about that in a minute. And then he says, okay, maybe there won't be 50, it'll be 45, etc. And as we know, Avraham, despite his valiant attempts, isn't successful, not because he hasn't established the principle, but because there isn't even a minion. There aren't even 10 righteous people in Sodom. He loses the battle. We have a question. It says, the verse in Chav Beis 22 says that Avraham is still standing before God. And then 23 says, Vayigash Avraham, and Avraham approaches. Well, if he's standing before God, he doesn't need to approach him. So what do we learn from this apparent surplusage or inconsistency? He's standing before God. What does it mean he's approaching God? So Rashi comments, we're going to need a little bit of explanation about this. Rashi comments that Vayigash can imply three things. Rashi says that we see in other places in the Torah, in Tanakh, the word Vayigash can be in the context of battle, that's milchama. It can be in the context of pius, which is appeasement, and it can be in the context of tefillah, which is prayer. So he says here, Avraham used all three. And Rabbi Zalman Sorotzkin in Moznayim LaTorah says this is really an answer. Rashi doesn't ask this question, but this is the answer to the question about, well, if he's already omed lifnei Hashem, if Avraham is already standing before God, why do you say he approaches God? And the answer is he's shifting. He's shifting now from a nevuah in which he's in essence a passive recipient to being an actor, So he's engaging, and it could be, although the language of Vayigash Gimel Shin implies approaching, wherever it is, it implies it changing a position. But here it implies it changing a position, obviously not physically. Avraham can't get physically any closer or any farther from God. God does not have a physical presence. So what it means is Avraham is shifting his approach, and he's shifting from being a passive recipient of prophecy to being an actor, in which he is adopting all three implied meanings of Vayigash. Milchama, that's battle, Piyus, appeasement, and Tefillah, prayer. How is he engaging in battle? How does one fight with God? So he's engaging in an argument, an intellectual battle with God. He's saying, look, God, you're the ultimate judge of the entire world. When somebody judges, he distinguishes between one case and another. And you're just going to throw out the baby with the bathwater. You're going to, if you destroy the entire city, even though there are tzaddikim, even though there are righteous people there, then ha'af tispet tzaddik im rasha, are you going to actually destroy righteous people together with the evil? And Onkelos translates ha'af as an allusion. Ha'af can mean also. It can be a shortened version of afilu, which is even, and it also referred to anger. Af means a nose, but biblically, charon af is the burning anger of the Almighty. So, according to Onkelos, the argument is: are you actually going to, as a result of your anger, consume not only the wicked but also the evil? That is an argument. That is a milchama. That's battle with the Almighty, arguing with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Where's the piyus, the appeasement? The Gur Aryeh explains, and he gave the previous explanation as well. Gur Aryeh is a commentary on Rashi written by the Maharal of Prague. So he says that the piyus is vanochi afor ve'efer. The appeasement. Look, who am I? I'm a nothing. I understand. I don't have greatness, says Avraham. I'm a nobody. I'm just trying to do the right thing. Shaarei Aharon, without attribution, so I assume it's his own understanding. He says, what is the difference between afor and efer? Afor is earth or dirt or dust, and efer is ashes. He says, earth represents potential. Afor sometimes refers to the basic material of the world. That represents potential. It's inchoate, it's not formed, but you can take it and you can grow things, you can build things with it. It's future looking. Efer is ashes. Ashes means something that was already in existence and was consumed by fire, and the only thing that's left is this very flimsy residue, which is ash. So that refers to the past. And Avraham is saying before God, I acknowledge I have no past, I'm a nobody, and I have no potential. Anochi afar ve'efer. I'm just raising an argument, not because I'm somebody special, I'm not an expert. I'm just engaging with my God. Anochi afar ve'efer. What is the tefillah? Tefillah is, Avraham also says, Al no yichar Lashem v'adavera. Please don't get angry. I'm going to speak. Please accept ulai matzun sham shloshim. Maybe there are 30. In other words, Avraham is adopting all three. Now, this reminds us of Yaakov Avinu's approach to his brother Esav. We learn in Vayishlach, we learn that Yaakov prepares for battle. He prepares for appeasement, and he prays. He prepares for battle by splitting up his camp. He prepares for appeasement by sending Esav many presents, livestock, other things, and he also engages in prayer, and he says to Hashem, "Hatzileni no mi'adochi mi'adosav," please save me from my brother. And what we are learning here is that an individual, when he wants to change a situation, he cannot be a one-trick pony. He cannot simply engage in battle. He cannot simply engage in words of appeasement. He cannot simply engage in tefillah, in prayer. He has to adopt all three, or at least be prepared to engage in the most productive of those approaches. He has to have a contingency plan. But if all you do is you take one of those, you might not be successful. If you adopt all three, then you increase your chance, and obviously you have to apply them in the appropriate circumstance, but you increase your chance of accomplishing your goal. As a final note, Rabbi Hirsch comments that Avram's argument is, maybe you'll find tzaddikim b'soch ha'ir, in the city. In other words, there is always a hope that if the righteous are engaged with those who are not righteous, that they can still, that there's a hope that they can have an influence. If they're Besoch Ha'ir, if they're in the middle of the city. And he's saying, if there in fact are righteous people who are engaged in society, there is still hope, and perhaps you don't need to destroy them. Now, his argument might have been successful had in fact there been righteous, but there weren't. And as a result, Hashem destroyed Sodom, although he did give an opportunity for Lot and his family to escape. In the end, we can't be locked into one approach. We do not have one size fits all. We do the best that we can, whether it's with a harsh engagement, which we connote as battle, or with pius, which we connote as appeasement or an attempt to reconcile, and finally, tefillah, which is prayer to invoke the aid of the Almighty in resolving that which we otherwise cannot. Have a good Shabbos.